Cool. All right, people starting to flow in.
Okay, beautiful. The doors are open. The doors are open. And Frank, the team is coming in on this Thursday afternoon, coming to you across Australia. Are we going to New Zealand today, Frank, or not?
We are. We send it to all of our clients all across Australia and New Zealand. So we should have people from all over, which is exciting.
Kia ora, everyone. Maureen says yes. Kia ora. Welcome, everybody. Let's get these numbers building up. We got two fit guys here. Frank, look at Frank. He's running 20 Ks a day. And then you got Matty Pillios. Even in a lockdown, even with all that's been going on, even though what's his name? Is it Daniel Andrews? Keep forgetting his name. Daniel Andrews.
Even what I want to say his name in Victoria.
Okay. Even though he basically said you can't do anything, just stay home. You still got those biceps there, Pillios. Well done, mate. Sun's out.
Great to be with you guys.
Hi. Look at this, New Zealand. Yes, good to see the Kiwis on here. Frank, I'm pretty excited today because we're going to have a great conversation with this client of mine and also a speaker at ARIC. And also I would have to say, he's got to be in the top dozen of real estate agents in the country, mate. This guy here has to be. Always good to have a fellow Greek on board. So, Frank, how have you been, Frank?
I've been good. I can't complain, Tom. It's obviously our business is across all of Australia and New Zealand. So now that New Zealand's gone into lockdown, we're feeling for them. And I apologise to New Zealand because I'm in Sydney and we're the cause of that. And same to Melbourne. I apologise to Melbourne. But I think there's definitely a good feeling in the air. We're going to come out of this. And I'm very excited.
Well, I'm pretty excited as well because guess what, gang? We've got dates, correct? We've got dates. End of September, maybe middle of September, 18th, 25th, we don't know. Which I'm starting to sound like those agents quoting figures. High September, mid-September, and all we know is September, highly likely that Matty Pillios is going to be able to be eyeball to eyeball with a buyer, right?
Cannot wait.
You can't wait, can't you?
Oh, I can't wait. And I think the other thing, Tom, is it's going to be a big difference. Is it going to be the houses that are unoccupied? You know, new house builds, no one lives in there. I've already had a couple of vendors say to me, Tom, I'm moving out September the 23rd, just in case the legislation is you can show people one-on-ones, but they can't have someone live there. So we're already preparing for just a huge storm. And you saw last year, guys, it was phenomenal. I think this year is going to be even more busier.
So I'm going to tell you, Matty, now that we've got visibility on what the date looks like in Melbourne, and by the way, there are more dates around the country. We know the Canberra situation is going to ease there. We know in Sydney, we've actually got a date, October 18. That's 5 weeks away. New Zealand, case numbers looking great. So it's inevitable that they're going to go down from a level 4 to a level 3. We know, and most importantly, as I was saying to Frank off camera, everyone down the camera, I've got good news for you. We are 3 months behind, say, England. And in England, my friends, they're off to the races. The market's hot. Buyers have gone crazy. Sellers have gone crazy. Confidence is high. It's like everyone was locked in a jail and the jail's been opened and people are saying, that's it. I'm bulletproof. I'm having a crack at this. I'm going for property. I've got to tell you, Matty and Frank, my view is this. We know that every 12 months, X amount of property's got to sell. When they don't sell in a particular quarter, they simply jump on to the next quarter. People have to move. Now, Matty, you remember what happened last year in Melbourne. When it opened up, it went ballistic. You never worked harder than you did. You made more money than you ever did.
It was crazy. It was unbelievable. And it's going to happen again, Tom.
And that's why we've got this interview today. Because if there's anyone right now here with Realbase that's on the pajama slope, yes, the ones that are sitting with their bathrobes still at home in the middle of the day, the party is over. Get over it. We're opening up. It basically means you got to pick up the damn phone and get a list of vendors ready to launch onto the market. The party's over. Forget about Dan Murphy's. You hit the phones before you hit Dan Murphy's, my friends, because we know in 30 or 40 days, Matty, in 30 or 40 days, we're out there doing business. I want to ask you, what are you going to be doing now as we lead up to this launch period?
Yeah, for sure, Tom. It's organising now, the styling. I mean, I've been prospecting the last 3 or 4 weeks, and thanks, team, thanks, Frank, and everyone joining us today. But now is just, I can already feel the urgency. Phone hasn't stopped. So I think the first half of lockdown is, I hope what most agents did is try to sell as much stock as you could. You know, whether it was virtual inspections, getting help from buyers that came into the opens prior to the lockdown. So what I said to myself, go back 4 weeks, Tom, is I'm going to try to sell everything I got. Because after speaking with you, I knew that late September comes early October, it's going to be crazy in real estate in Victoria and across the country. October, November, up to probably Christmas Eve is going to be unbelievable and the hottest market in history. So I sold 70-80% of my stock the last 6 weeks to people that came through to opens, and in the interim, I've now prospected. So I've picked up listings, and so has our team, because we know that everybody now has that urgency to sell. The market's so hot. There's low stock. There's so many buyers out there.
Matty, what's a conversation sound like now to people that you're calling in preparation for the opening? What are you saying to potential vendors?
Yeah, it's a check-in first, because, you know, and today's an Are You Okay day. It's always, how you going? Are you okay? How's the family? It's a tough time because everyone takes COVID differently. And then it's also, I just wanted to check in with you from a market point. The market is still extremely strong. We have a lot of buyers out there. We feel like it's going to be extremely strong over the next 3 to 6 months at least. There's a lot of expats coming in, and your information give. You know, we've had some phenomenal sales in your area. If there's some consideration to sell, please let me know. We've got a lot of buyers looking, and that's the sort of dialogue it's been. So it's a check-in, nurture, but also let them know that it's a great opportunity for them to sell.
Yeah, and Frank, I've been pushing anyone that wants to talk to me, a vendor, a relative, a friend, a gym member. I'm just saying, listen here. Don't hesitate. Even if you've got this narrative in your head, let's wait till Daniel Andrews gives us a green light, or let's wait till Gladys gives us a green light. No, work ahead of the curve. What you got to do, every client here right now at Realbase watching this, listen to me carefully. Pick up the phone and tell your clients to prepare now and launch later. Get them into the system. Get the paperwork processed. We got to lock photographers, Matty. We got to lock videographers. We got to get them into an open home time. I mean, there's going to be a lot of listings on at the one time. Not everyone's going to be happy with being given a 4:30 p.m. time if you've got a full schedule on, right? So
100%.
So I think, Matty, you know, and I know what you're like, because you're one of the best agents. I think you're number 3 in the network of. Are you number 3? You are, aren't you?
It's very hard to beat Marcus and James, but it's it's a good honour to be number 3, even though it's something not to boast.
Okay. Marcus Kiminello and James Tosseben, they're
probably number 1 and 2 in Victoria. I mean, I saw the REB come out with some top 50, and I didn't see Marcus or Tossie there. I mean, they're clear number 1 and 2, and they're probably top 5 in the country. But it's a privilege to be third to them too over the last couple of years.
But but Matty and Frank, the good girls and guys will go into the opening with stock ready to launch.
Yep.
You're not going to, I reckon where you don't want to be is there's an opening, and then
you don't have to stop.
Wife, hey, how are you? She's in the background. Right? She's
just snuck through.
Yeah, she was timing and waiting for you to finish to talk. Anyway, so here's gang. Those of you that are watching, don't fall into this trap. We open up, you go to work, and you say, who do I call to try and get a listing now?
Correct.
That bit is got to be done now. There's a law called the 30-day rule, and that law is really clear. What you do in a 30-day period impacts the next 90 days. Now's the time. I want to ask you, Matty, on a serious note, look, I've lived through a 12-week lockdown in Sydney with Frank. And quite frankly, it hasn't been a strong lockdown like the Melbourne lockdown, right?
I was going to say that. I heard your lockdown's not like ours.
Yeah.
And the New
and lucky and well deserved to you both.
Oh,
and the New Zealand lockdown mirrors the Melbourne lockdown. And I'm pleased to let you know, Liz Nid has just told us that the New Zealand, other than Auckland, has gone to level 2, right? And level 2 is a lot more flexibility. Auckland, I believe, is still in level 4, which is equivalent to your lockdown. In fact, I would say it's harder than yours. You can still go to a coffee shop and get a takeaway coffee. In New Zealand, get ready for this, Frank. If they want to get a coffee, they go to a service station and get one of those polystyrene cup coffees out of the $2 machine.
That's bad.
I feel for that.
That's bad, huh?
It's just bad for this.
Our own coffee. James says we've got to make our own bloody coffee. Yes. So, but can I ask you, Matt? How do you stay? Like, that's a long. Don't forget, you had 200 days last year that we were in a lockdown, right?
Yeah.
So 200. Then we had these last. You didn't have 200. You had 17 weeks in a row, and now you're at around 215 days. I want to ask you, how do you stay optimistic, relevant, positive when each day rolls into each other?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's all mindset. So it's all about firstly, it's minimizing the noise, minimizing the news. So a big rule that Belle and I have in our house, and we tell most people, is keep the news off during the day. You're going to hear something through Facebook or Instagram or through a family friend or a phone call. So you're not hearing that negativity because no one wants to hear about cases and COVID and restrictions. It's the mindset. What's the things we can't do when you're busy in real estate that we can do now? So it's, having meals together, exercising every day for an hour and a half, 2 hours. We play a family game of billiards every second night and having that time, watching the block. Planning. I'm working in the home office, not having to get into a suit and drive around to opens every day. So I'm probably making double the calls I generally make on a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday when I don't have opens. So it's taking all the positives that you can possibly do and making it as best as productive as possible. Relationships with vendors, relationships with Pipeline A, relationships with my team. I speak to my team a lot more during COVID than I actually do sometimes because you're on the fly all the time. So it's just getting as much positives and mindset and just talking to positive people. The first thing I did in week 1 is I spoke with Marcus Ciminello. I spoke with James Tosterton. I spoke with yourself, Tom, I think, a lot of times we do on text. And I just thought, industry leaders, Michael Sheargold, industry leaders I spoke to get gold. And you've got to just surround yourself with talent and good people.
Now, I want to ask you this question. Your team, how many of you is there?
We've got 2 admin and myself and 3 other sales executives.
Okay.
Just in my personal team. They're Marshall White Base.
Your personal team. I'm curious.
Yeah.
How does a personal team morale, culture stay together when you're geographically not seeing each other? I mean, you haven't seen each other, right?
Yeah, it's tough. Look, it's sometimes going to be a disconnect. Like, Kylie Charlton, who you're close with. Kylie's been pretty full on with the homeschooling. She's got 3 kids. So I probably haven't had as much contact with Kylie as I usually would when I work with Kylie. But then with Simone, who's got older kids, and Nikita's got no kids, Nikita, who you know well.
Hey, Nikita's on here as well. Nikita says no takeaways or Uber Eats in Auckland. That would be, Frank.
She's New Zealand as well. So Nikita's...
She's a stunning.
Under Marshall White 4 or 5 months ago and been phenomenal.
But listen, Frank, how would you, like Uber Eats has become pretty useful during the last few months.
My wife and I would starve. We've got a constant drip of Uber Eats. I don't know how we'd be able to cope.
Well, the service has dropped with Uber Eats because they're so busy. I heard there's a shortage of drivers. I don't know if that's in Melbourne, definitely.
Yeah.
So they're picking up 2 or 3 orders at the same time, and I'm hearing from people that people getting their orders closed, so cold, I should say, and a lot longer.
So, Maddie, can I ask you, chances are when you open up in Melbourne, you're not going to be able to do open for inspections, right? Not right.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be one-on-ones in 10-minute increments as from what I'm hearing, and that makes sense because that in the June lockdown that we had last year, so the June opening we had after the May lockdown, before the big 17-weeker, we were able to do one-on-ones, one person at a time, up to 10 or 20 minutes. It's funny how they. So we feel like it's going to be that.
What do you do? They sit in a car and you text them. How would you event manage that process?
Yeah, we'll probably just say, so you try to use your time management. So be smart. You think you've got a property that's going to get a fair few buyers. You say we're going to be there from 12 to 1 o'clock. We're going to be 10 past 12. The next buy will be 20 past 12:30, 12:40, 12:50, 12:60. Sorry, 1 o'clock. And I'll probably get eight buyers in that 1 hour, because a lot of buyers will go in and out in a 5-minute increment. And what I'll do is just have one outside, straight in, one outside, straight in, and just be smart like that, proactive.
Yeah, that's interesting. Can I ask a question? I was actually talking to an agent yesterday. I went for a walk with him, and we were talking about this idea of doing the inspections and having to do the back-to-back like that. And you've got a couple of things that come up, is like maintaining your energy throughout that entire open for inspection period. But also said to me something that said the market's just so hot right now that he had to really essentially condition the buyers before walking in to make sure that they are a true buyer, not just a nosy neighbor. To make sure that you've only got a certain amount of time. How do you use it wisely? Like, what's your approach in that space?
Yeah, it's a good question, Frank. It's by inspection always. So at the moment, it's a open by inspection or appointment by inspection. So that is qualifying the buyer. We've got a really good software that most agents have, Box and Dice, that Tom knows of really well, that we can do some homework. You can Google buyers anyway to know if they're a neighbour or not. So it's just about pre-qualifying the buyer. Finding out are you ready to buy? Are you interested? If someone says, I'm not really ready yet, I don't have my finance ready, I'll say, look, respectfully, sorry, but we're only limited to amount of people. If I can fit them in, I'll fit them in, because it could be your future client. But it's a good question. Just trying to qualify your buyer's imperative.
Yeah, that makes sense. And the other thing was, at the moment, so obviously is there a dialogue that's going on at the moment around, because we know there's going to be this huge rebound come September, October, whenever it happens, right? Is there a dialogue at the moment saying, hey, we need to get you on sooner? Or what's that approach to try and help not because I can imagine when that hits in October, there's almost going to be too much for people to handle. And then a lot of properties for maybe not as many buyers, I'm not sure.
Look, I always have the supply and demand conversation. I think Tom taught me that early in real estate. It doesn't matter what industry you are, if there's less supply and more demand. So I always say to my vendors or prospective vendors at the moment, there's so much demand at the moment. It's so low supply. I don't know what's going to happen in December or February, March. Whilst the market is hot, is always the dialogue. Why would you risk not putting it on the market now if you can get it ready and if you can sell now? I'm also advising prospective vendors and vendors to paint, patch, clean, garden, do everything now. Bunnings are open, tradesmen are open, builders are open. Do everything now so they can be in preparation straight for the launch in late September.
That makes sense. And let's say they do come on now. What does your virtual inspections look like right now while you're in lockdown?
Yeah, so there's that's been new for me. So what I did was I was lucky. Most of my stock has videos. I do a walkthrough video, and the stock that I could sell in that first 4 weeks of lockdown, team, I was lucky because photos are good, but video is good. Then people get building inspected and work well. So I was selling stock. At the moment now, I'm asking for really good quality to vendors, really good quality walkthrough videos, and I'm WhatsApping it to it. So if I get a phone call, I've launched one worth close to 2 million. I've had 20 people ring. And what I say is, look, I can't take you through until September the 23rd. But what I have got is, what I can tell you is I reckon you should be around the top of the range, mid to top of the range. But I also got a phenomenal, fully commentary, intimate walkthrough video that the owner did. So I educated the owner. I said, have all the lights on, have the place clean, have it on a sunny day with some natural light, and have some commentary. So because you intimately know the property better than I do. Yeah. And it's worked so well. So I've had some really good vendors do these walkthrough videos, and I've WhatsApped them once I've had the phone call with the buyers.
Matty, can I extend on that and suggest that maybe another thing that I've heard has been working well is that you get your vendor to do the Zoom inspection on the property. They mute themselves, and you get the agent commentating, right? You and throw your 20 cents worth. One of the things I've always been, Frank, I've always been nervous. I'll never forget about. I was selling a house in Watkins Street, Newtown, and the vendor Matty, the vendor decided to become a salesperson as well that day. And I've got the offer and acceptance. It's all great. There we are. And then the vendor blurts out, and I've got to tell you, the pub up the road, look, it might stay up till 2 o'clock in the morning, but
oh no,
I've got to tell you, generally most of the time it's not a problem. You hear the occasional bottle fight, you see some that. I learned to live with it. And she didn't even know that there was a pub there, right?
Perfect way to lose a buyer.
Right. So, listen, we're getting a few questions coming through. Travis says, I'm supposed to be in Melbourne joining a new office. I'm locked out of the state. Well, by the sounds of it, that's probably worked in your favour. What can I do to prepare for a new position while in lockdown? Become a student of real estate. Learn everything inside out. Learn every piece of dialogue, every technique, learn how to use digital, learn how to actually use your social media to build your personal brand, learn how to deliver a perfect listing presentation. Oh, and by the way, the best way to do that is through the real estate gym. And I was talking
100%.
I was talking to Matty's not only a gym member, but he's a contributor. Frank, I was talking, and I'm letting you know the Realbase clients get more value add. So if you go onto if you go to realestategym.com.au, the wait list, because it's not open now. When we open it, you're going to be able to enjoy everything that you need to succeed in real estate. That's what I was doing. So that's realestategym.com.au. Then I've got some other people saying you don't know what lockdown is compared to Auckland. Look, I got to admit, Auckland's even the next level. But the good news, Auckland, is you didn't have to do 17 weeks in a row. And you're going to be out of level 3, out of level 4 soon. Then we've got no takeaway or Uber Eats. I think we've gone all over all those questions. I was going to ask you, Matty, like in my mind, there's going to be so much demand. Like in Melbourne, the drill is that you work till the middle of December, and then what actually happens is you got the Australian Open tennis on, and then Australia Day, and then normally people come back to work right at the end of that January, early February, and they begin their campaigns.
Yeah.
Do you see that being the same this year, or do you see the fact that, people have been repressed from the marketplace that they're going to actually want to operate in it?
Yeah, look, if I base it on last year, so last year it was full steam, and I remember doing 2 sales on the 23rd, Tom, and Frank, on the 24th. I remember doing a sale that it was impossible to sell, and I got an offer and they took it. And I remember thinking to myself, I said to Belle, we'll go to Queensland every year. I try to have 2.5 weeks with the family, go to the Gold Coast in Broadbeach and see Tom there. He comes from Bondi, does his swing 1 day a week, he's Bikram yoga, and catch up with him. But I said to Belle, maybe we don't go to Queensland this year because I think I'm going to be busy. But it was really quite like normal years, New Year's up to New Year's Eve, probably to about Jan the 12th. But that last day or two when I was flying out about the 13th of Jan back, it got busy. So it got really busy from the 15th, 16th of Jan. And I feel the exact same thing, especially in the middle to upper market that I currently work in, and most of Marshall White, we're in the money belts of Melbourne. It definitely will be quiet from Christmas, but it won't, and you're right, Tom, it usually starts back late Jan, early Feb, but like last year, make no mistake, really strong till Christmas. There'll be that 2 to 3 weeks tops. Then back by the 15th, they'll be pumping, and people wanting to actually have their house on the market that last Saturday of Jan for their first open for inspection, and they'll already be booking in make no mistake, mid to Feb auctions will already be locked in from a lot of vendors. And a lot of people will say to you now, a lot of people are getting tenants out now. You can actually start winning business for 2022. People need to get their head around it. Some people are slow movers, but a lot of people have tenants in rentals at the moment that they've got to give 64 days, and they've got to spruce the house. So this is also, start thinking about your 2022 pipeline.
Isn't that scary? Isn't that a scary thought to think the year?
It is.
Yeah.
Now, the amount of people ringing me at the moment saying, look, I've got a tenant. What should I do, and when should I sell, and how should I sell with the tenant? And my advice is 9 times out of 10 now you're getting more money without the tenant in there. They've got 64 days, and potentially with COVID restrictions, they could hold you another month if they don't find a place. We're already in mid-September. Get them out now, then you'll be ready for a mid-late January launch. And they say, mate, that's great advice. And it's the old, you might lose $5,000 of rent, but it's an investment. You invest another $5,000, which you've spent now $10,000 on a bit of patching and painting. But that investment, and that's a great word to always use, agents watching, it's a great 10, 15 grand investment to get 50 to 100 grand back.
Now, Frank, I would encourage every one of your clients that have come on today to, if you haven't done it already, to do what Matt has said. And I suggest the conversation's got to be like this. I've got a lot of clients that are telling me they're getting great feedback and engagement from clients. Mr. and Mrs. Vendor, at the moment, I want to let you know there are two types of vendors in the marketplace. There are those that are coming on now and listing now and launching later with the view of selling in isolation versus competition. And there's a second type of vendors who are just procrastinating and holding off, and then they're going to put their property on the market when everyone else in Australia is at the same time. That's called selling in competition. I bet you're a bit like me, Mr. and Mrs. Vendor, and you want to get a 10% premium on your property. Let's prepare now and launch immediately. We're going to have a 3-week advantage over every other vendor. That's what the smart people are doing. And I would encourage everyone to do that. And the reason I say it, Matty, I've seen it too often. When there's a lot of stock on the market, you start seeing more property being passed in, right? Because there's just more to pick from, right? And you know, the buyer that would have paid another 200 more at auction holds back and says, but there's another one around the corner. Let's get vendors out there to maximize their price. I'm going to hand over to you now, Frank. There's a question. Rachel says, this has been great. Thank you. There are some resources you recommend before the real estate gym opens. Yes, before the real estate gym opens, what I would suggest you do is you go to my YouTube channel, because I've got a lot of the mini cuts of the stuff there, and you can actually watch. Do yourself a favor, type in Tom Panos, Matt Pillios, and go off, and you're going to watch about 4 or 5 segments from the great man talking about what he did. By the way, Frank, you know, he came from realestate.com. He was a salesman there.
Really?
Realestate.com. That's where he was.
That's cool. How long before?
Great company, REA Group. If any of the REA Group people are watching, thank you for all your support. They always look after us well, and same with the Herald Sun there, but a great company. I learned a lot there.
How long were you there?
I just couldn't make the money as a selling agent. I told Tom that. They capped your commission. Yeah. That's the best thing about real estate. You can make more money than lawyers and doctors in this game, and it's scary.
That makes sense.
It's a great industry.
We have one more question here in the Q&A box. It says, what type of dialogue are you using with vendors, preparing them for offers early? Have you adjusted your campaign strategy meeting to factor this in and a number of buyers to expect?
It's a really good question, because when the lockdown happened here 8 weeks ago now, most of the vendors were like, it's only going to be a week or two, and we'll just wait. Well, you know, weather the storm for 2 or 3 weeks, and we'll go back to auction. As the time went on, I started educating. You know, I think there was an old ugly word in real estate called conditioning. I started educating my vendors, saying, I just want to let you know that we've been on the market a bit. I always told you I felt the property was worth, say, for example, there was one in Murphy Street I had with my colleague Simone. I said to Mandy, I always thought the property was worth, when I pitched it to you, in that 2.5 to 2.7 zone. I know you want top of the range. The big risk is if we're in lockdown for 3-4 weeks, more stock's going to come off. Is there a number there that makes sense? Mate, let you think about it, so there's no pressure. They get back and say, you know what, if you could get us 2.7 or 2.65, we would sell now. So that all of a sudden would prepare and help you get sales in lockdowns and help you get earlier sales before. So it was really working. It's the old gap as well. It's educating vendors as well, and honestly and ethical, as well as putting the fear of loss with buyers. So sometimes I was telling vendors, there's a big opportunity that we will be in lockdown, and I was right. For 8-9 weeks, you've got holding costs and stress, and also time frames. And I'll also say to buyers, there's a massive opportunity. There's going to be no stock, market's still going up. We don't know whether we're going to be able to show you more properties. Now, I'll always say to prospective buyers, if I really need to make some sales, I don't know how much stock we've got coming up. Even if I do, but I say I don't really know how much stock's coming up. There's not a lot at the moment on there. And that's a big thing to help you. So that just being strategic with vendor and buyer.
Frank, I also think that you've got to actually set this up at the listing presentation. So Mr. Solfaro, who's actually written that question in, I would say what you want to do is when you list a property, you should have this conversation after you've signed it up and say, listen, I want to prepare you for what's going to come up next. I don't want to have any bad surprises. One of the things I want to speak to you about is this thing about an early quick offer. Often we get our best offers in the first week. If we're fortunate enough to get an offer in the first week, I want you to understand that that is because buyers are waiting for new stock to come onto the market. If they find the one they want, they often pay top dollar. So what I'd like to say, Mr. Vendor, it's not how long you have been on the market, it's how long the buyer has been in the market. If you can explain this to a vendor at the time of the listing presentation, and then when that does actually happen, guys, you've actually set it up. The second thing is, if a vendor says, oh, but you know what, early days, it's a good start. And often they do, they get really encouraged by an early offer.
Yeah.
And they'll say, we'll just leave it on the market and we'll just leave it till we get, a better price. Hey, listen, real estate's like milk and bread at Woolworths and Coles. It doesn't actually get dearer, it gets cheaper the longer it stays on the market. It's got a use-by date. Milk and bread doesn't get dearer. It gets cheaper, right? It gets cheaper, right? And what you've got to watch out, Mr. Solfaro that sent me this question, is you've got to make sure that the vendors that you represent don't move from the sweet zone to the stale zone. And that
100%.
does happen, right? That does happen. Anyway, I've really enjoyed this, Frank.
Yes, very much so. I got one more question. If anybody else has a question, pop it in. The last question from me, Matt, is anybody who knows me, I'm a big guy on teams. I love a team. How do you keep the team motivated or prepare them for what's to come? I guess now that everything's starting to change, it's like, how do you get everybody like, hey, it's going to be game day soon. How do you get them in that mindset?
Yeah. It's communication. It's not easy, to be honest. It's not easy going from really sprinting to jogging and really sprinting. So it is really hard. So it's just trying to prepare everything now, motivating them. I'm trying to encourage everyone to say, work at 60 to 70% now. Enjoy this time. Yes. Enjoy switching the phone off at 5 o'clock at night, even though I probably stay until 6 in this office here. Which is early for me, but I say enjoy this time now because make no mistake, it's going to be so busy October to Christmas. So it's just communicating with them, not over, we had a weekly team meeting, Frank, and then we have our sales meeting every Tuesday. So I said for about 4 weeks in a row, after the first week, I thought a couple of parents are in my team. Yes. And I said, you know what, we're not going to have any team meetings on the Mondays. Let's just have 4 weeks off. So you can have more time. So it was less commitment. Yeah. So it's just really taking the workload off a bit because then they're so fresh. So when we get into this crazy sprint, so it's really everyone now, prepare yourself, rest now. I know that I've got 2 weeks of just working at 70, 80% before it's crazy again. And it's very stressful because just plan everything you can now.
Awesome. Love that. Cool. Thank you, Matt.
And look after yourself. If you get really fit and healthy, Frank, I know you're as fit as the great man Tom and myself, even though Tom is fit up, pound for pound, age.
Frank's a maniac. Frank runs for hours. He just keeps.
I thought it was Sylvester Stallone 1990 come on the screen before when I saw him, Tommy. But what I'm saying to everyone as well is get yourself even physically so fit at the moment. I know I'm always pushing this, Tom, but this is a great time to get really physically fit because when work is over, you don't get to train. You miss out on the morning walks. You might eat on the fly. So this is a great time. Actually, don't get on the. Someone mentioned Dan Murphy's before. You made me laugh, Tom. But this is if you get really fit now, then you've got a couple of losses if you do eat unhealthy, miss a couple of trainings while it's really busy. So that's other advice as well to all the agents out there. Do those long walks now. Do those podcasts now. Get yourself physically and mentally fit and healthy now because it will be a stressful time, but it will be worth it financially.
And Frank, you know how many people would book in coaching sessions and say to me, Tommy, I just want some more life balance. Guess what? You've got it. You've got it now. You've got it more than you'd want, Anyway, it's absolute pleasure. By the way, there's another comment there from Almarie Vanderhurst. Will this video be available afterwards? Well, I can see the record button. Frank. So,
record it and send it to everybody.
So you'll send it to those that are there. Thank you so much, Paul, Judd. Thank you so much, everyone. Matty Pillios, thank you so much. And I really do look.
Thanks, guys, for having us.
Matty, I want to see you in person. Right? I'll see you. I'll try and see you.
I've seen you once physically, and I've got a man crush on Tom, everyone watching. I've seen this great man once in 15 months, and it was at Eric, and it was one of the greatest experiences of my life. I can't wait for 2022. But Tom was a machine that day, and we were supposed to have a cocktail on the Monday night, but this guy had done 16-hour days, three days prior. He should have said he'd flown in the Saturday night. We had rehearsals with John McGrath at about 7 o'clock at night. He'd just flown in for about 20 auctions. Eric for 2 days straight, and he is a machine at Eric, and it's one of the best conferences in the world. And that was the last time I've seen you. That was the only time I've seen you in 15 months since we caught up in Sydney.
By the way, Realhub was there, the great Realhub video production.
They had the big state in the middle, yes.
They were there, and they actually ended up interviewing you afterwards. So in the real estate gym, Frank, we've actually got the speakers. We've got the speakers, and what we did is we cut through the crap and asked them their top 3 or 4 strategies, and they're in the real estate gym, including Matt Pillios. And I clearly remember you were wearing a black and white checkered jacket that day. Am I correct?
It was a beautiful Godwin Charlie special.
Oh, look at that. That's Melbourne for you. They care about their clothes. They care about the only group of people that I know that actually put on men's cologne, right, in real estate, right? Anyway.
It was great to dress up. First time I've worn a shirt for a couple of weeks, team, and thank you so much for having us.
No worries.
Thanks, Frank and Tom.
Thank you, Tom.
Franks, thank you, Matt. Thank you, guys and girls. As we said, that opens at 6 o'clock.
Great to see you guys.
See you guys.
Thanks, everyone, for joining.